Over at Ray's. For some reason today, a memory of the ice cream store in the old neighborhood crossed my mind. Ray's. The sign simply said, Ray's, ice cream. And we all called it Ray's in the neighborhood. We'd say, hey, let's go to Ray's. See you at Ray's. I'm going over to Ray's. It was a smaller store then, a mom and pop operation, a block up and over from our house on Edgar Street, past the bowling alley, which most people called Bolero, while others pronounced it Bolero. And beyond Ray's, there wasn't much of anything all the way up to 14 Mile Road. At that young age, I recall always getting a sugar cone with a scoop of peppermint stick on top. And boy, oh boy, it was just like a cold, creamy candy cane and just what any little boy or girl would want. Anytime, any day, anyhow, anyway. And just 10 cents got you a scoop back then. Mom always got the coffee ice cream, which I later graduated to once the pure sugar candy cravings of a kid had passed. Ray was a white-haired man with glasses, in a white shirt and white pants. Everyone behind the counter wore white back then, dresses for the women, shirts and pants for the men. A stand-up, walk-up counter to the right with a cash register, and on the left a long curving counter of pearly gray formica winding its way around, with stools to sit on with red round cushions, a checkerboard of black and white tiles on the floor. When I was a little older, I had a paper route, the Detroit News, a small route, only 2 streets, Edgar and Coolidge, and a little piece of Star Road in between. And I'm not sure why they didn't just give 1 street each to the routes on either side of me, but they didn't. So that's all I had, just 2 blocks. And I liked my little paper route. That is, until one summer when a kid down the block took over for me while I was gone up north, and he pulverized the route. When I came back for the school year, there were only about a dozen customers left. He just wiped it out. And at a 3-cent commission, that only made for 36 cents a day. Hardly worth it. But when it was a healthy route, I enjoyed it. 3 cents on each daily, 7 cents on each Sunday paper, and on days when the paper was thin, I could put them all in a canvas shoulder bag and walk my little route. On the days with thicker editions, I'd throw a double bag over the back of my bike. Rain? Yeah, you still had to do it. Snow? Yep, get out there, get it done. The paper station was a few blocks away, almost to the railroad tracks, down a dead-end industrial street. It was a small 1-room brick building with rough tables of plywood and 2x4s, where we all stuffed our papers with the advertisement sections. Mr. Zarati ran the station. He was always in a good mood. He always called the newspapers bananas. You'd call out your route number and he'd count out your bananas and stack 'em. And you'd move 'em to an empty table where you could stuff 'em and put 'em in your bags. Sunday mornings were Big Bananas Day. Big, thick, heavy papers, and always more of them. Every route had more Sunday-only customers, sometimes twice as many. And that was the day when you saw some dads there, sitting in idling cars outside as their boys stuffed the bananas inside. Dad would wake me up on Sundays at 6 o'clock, and he'd fire up his 1962 white Valiant Slant 6, the kind with the 3-speed shifter on the steering column. 3 on the tree, we called those transmissions. Anyway, He'd put along slowly with the white Valiant in first gear, the trunk lid up, listening to the radio and smoking cigarettes. He was smoking cigarettes, not me, yet. I'd grab the papers from the trunk and walk them up to the houses, and then we'd go home. And Dad would get another cup of coffee with the last newspaper while I crawled back into bed. And then collection day came around, which was never any one particular day, any weekday after school and before dinner would do. And I'd put my coin changer on my belt, the type with 4 tubes, one each for quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies, a slot at the top to drop coins in, a lever at the bottom of each tube to dispense the coins one at a time. 65 cents change would be click, click on the quarters, a click on the dimes, and a click on the nickels. Clicky, click, 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 thank you, ma'am. And on to the next house I'd go. 90 cents a week for those who had both the daily and the Sunday delivered. 35 cents for Sunday only. I'd get the occasional bonehead who wouldn't pay me for weeks, always sending me away or not answering the door. Then I'd finally catch them home and tell them that they owed me 10 weeks. 10 weeks! They'd shout at me. Well, yes, sir, you keep sending me away week after week. They'd disappear from the door, come back thrusting $9 at me and shout, 10 weeks! You can keep your damn papers! And slam the door in my face. No tip. I never could quite figure out that kind of customer. What in the world did I do to deserve that? I think that's when I began to question the average intelligence of the public in general. But I had my share of good customers who would tip me, be pleasant and polite. And as for the rude tightwads and those who never tipped or were nasty, Sunday morning was the paper boy's revenge. A good slam on the screen door early Sunday morning with that big heavy paper. Wham! Especially effective if they had a dog that barked and went wild when I smacked the screen door with the paper. Wham! Take that, you nasty tightwad. And I'd walk away with a mischievous grin. So anyway, once the collecting was done, I'd click 65 cents from my coin changer and head down Coolidge to Ray's, sit at the long curving counter and order a chocolatey malted milkshake and share it with me, myself, and I. A little reward for another week's worth of walking my little Detroit newspaper route. And it was a great chocolate malted. A fantastic reward. And the folks at Ray's, all dressed in white, didn't just fill the tall, heavy glass. No, they poured to the top of the glass and then set the metal mixing cup next to it with a long-handled spoon, so you could have all that too. And usually you could pour and scrape about another half serving out of there and into your big, heavy milkshake glass. And although I don't miss the occasional bonehead on that route, and although I'm glad I make more than the $7 to $9 a week that little route paid, I do miss those chocolate malted milkshake rewards. Yep, Ray's made the best. And I have never had a chocolate malted that tastes quite as good as those milkshakes after collection day, when you'd find me a block up and over from our little house on Edgar Street, sitting at the long curving counter, scraping the last of a chocolate malted out of a metal mixing cup and licking the last of it off the long-handled spoon over at Ray's.